Hi. The final topic in the Week 1 study guide is looking at database applications, and in particular the architectures of different database applications. Now, we've covered a fair bit of ground in Week 1, and this might be one topic too far for Week 1, and if it is, it really doesn't matter, because this is a topic that we'll come back and have a look at again in Week 12. So hopefully this will all make sense in Week 12. But what we see here is a representation of different database applications. We saw an image before of you formulating an SQL query through Microsoft Access, that is msaccess.exe, which we will from here on in refer to simply as Microsoft Access. So using Microsoft Access, submitting queries to the Jet engine that's reading pages from a disk drive to process your query. Now, we've said that Microsoft Access is also an application development tool, so it's a tool that you can use to develop forms and reports. Now, when you run those forms and reports, you have to still have a copy of Microsoft Access. So when an application user is using the forms and reports in a Microsoft Access application, those forms and reports are submitting SQL queries to the Jet engine, which is reading and writing data from and to a database. So this image here represents a single user Microsoft Access application. Microsoft Access being used in combination with the Jet engine. And this is one type of application that you can build using Microsoft Access, the product. Now, you can also develop small multi-user database applications using Microsoft Access, the product. So whenever I'm referring to Microsoft Access, the product, as you can see, I'm going to qualify in that way, meaning that I'm talking about msaccess.exe plus the Jet engine. So here we see Microsoft Access, that's msaccess.exe, issuing, or an application, so the forms and the reports that are running within Microsoft Access, issuing SQL queries to the Jet engine. So the Jet engine is running on that user's computer, which is then reading and writing pages from and to a file server. So now the database is sitting on a file server. So here's a small, so you can build small multi-user applications using Microsoft Access, the product, that is msaccess.exe in combination with the Jet engine. Now, for larger applications, you have to go to a server DBMS. So here we see Microsoft Access forms and reports now being used in combination with a server database engine. So the main point of difference here is that notice now that the SQL queries are being passed across. There's only one database engine running. It's running on the database server. And instead of disk pages being read from and written across the network, now all we have is SQL queries being passed across the network to the database engine, a single database engine. Typically the server database engines are more sophisticated, so what I've shown here is the database being spread across 2 disk drives, and there's a good reason why you would want to do that for a database that will become clear later. But the point is that Microsoft Access can be used, the Microsoft Access forms and reports can be used in combination with a server DBMS. And possible server DBMS are SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, and PostgreSQL, or Postgres, which is another open source DBMS like MySQL, in many senses more mature than MySQL, but probably not quite as well known, or not quite as popular. Now, of course, most modern database applications, new database applications, are web database applications, and web database applications use a different architecture again. And we'll talk about that in Week 12. So, as I said, if this doesn't make too much sense at the moment, this is a bit too much for Week 1, don't worry about it. We'll come back. Hopefully it'll make sense in Week 12. So that's it. That's a wrap for Week 1. Important activities for you now are to experiment with those queries. Jump in, make a start on assignment 1. Really important you get off to a good start with assignment 1 this week, so have a go, see if you can formulate a couple of queries to answer information requests for assignment 1. And the other job you've got to do is have a go at formulating notes to satisfy each one of the learning objectives. Yep, there's some exercise solutions there in the study guide, and there's a bit more chat about the importance of learning objectives there. So that's it, that's a wrap, that's week 1. Hope that made sense. Hope you enjoyed that week 1, and see you in week 2.